My 33F husband, 34M, just blew up our relationships with our families. What now? Disclaimer. Yes, this happened because of politics. Too long did not read. My husband blew up at both mine and his family over politics, morals, deciding to block them from ours and expectant daughter's life, leaving me caught up in everything with no say. My husband and I have been married 8 years, together for 11.5 years. We are finally expecting our first child, a daughter, in just 30 days. We are very much on the same page when it comes to morals and parts of politics that overlap. For example, pro-choice, and the government has no right to have any power over that. That being said, this isn't necessarily about politics but caused by politics. We live about 3.5 hours away from our immediate families, which means we see them only 1 or 2 times per year. We would see them more, but we have to go to them, and between my family only living there half the time and his being very busy and incapable of planning really anything, it just hasn't happened. My family is very Republican. Not in the sense of worshipping Trump, but in the sense Democrats, liberals are completely unreasonable, immature, narrow-minded, uneducated sheep. Yes, it's been a problem. Years ago I finally snapped and said that if they wanted a relationship, politics are to never be discussed. This didn't go over well and we were no contact for well over a year. Since breaking no contact about 4 years ago, pandemic was a factor as I worked directly with it. It has been an extremely slow process to build a relationship. Filled with holes because of many other issues refusing to be addressed, but something. My husband's family is very moderate, immediate, and extremely liberal extended. That being said, his siblings are some of the most important people in his life and their opinions hold some of the highest values. He especially values the relationship between him and his older sister, 10 years older, and her husband. I'm not nearly as close with them but still adore them for all they have done and sacrificed for my husband and their younger sisters. Yesterday was the baby shower we planned with our families. Things started rocky because the older sister, her husband, their adult son, and mother-in-law couldn't come, equating to 1/3 of our guest list. I was devastated as I was especially looking forward to spending time with them. After some comfort from my husband and a long shower, I pulled myself together to still try and have a nice time. Well, then things wound down and we went back to my parents' house where we were staying for the weekend. I should have known better than to expect things to be okay and the elephant in the room to continue being ignored. It started with my dad bringing up RFK as pick for HHS and then my husband bringing up Gates. It didn't take long for a full-blown screaming and name-calling fight to erupt. I 100% believe in the points my husband was making but did not agree with how he handled things. Was my dad equally terrible? Absolutely. He was no better, but it was clearly my husband escalating things until he stormed off. He threw our things back into the suitcase, texted me he was leaving, and asked if I was coming. I should probably mention that I have a freeze response to situations. Directly involved or not, all I can do in high conflict situations is stay still and silent for even minutes after things stop. So when my husband was asking me if I was leaving with him, I was still trying to process what just happened. Eventually he left the house and had his cousin pick him up. For the next 2 hours I was trying to do damage control with my parents. I tried to explain how and why these things scared us so much, and how we feared for our daughter, but it really didn't get through. The whole time my husband was texting my parents saying how they are never allowed in our home again or allowed to be in our daughter's life. Finally, around 10 p.m., I had enough and decided to just pack things up, get my husband, and drive back to our home. It was not an easy decision because I was emotional, exhausted, and did not think driving 3 hours in the middle of the night through country roads was safe. And I knew I would be stuck driving the whole way because my husband was at a bar with his cousin. I left with both my mom and I crying and my dad just focused on getting the car loaded. Picking up my husband was a separate nightmare. He didn't want to leave at first, and when I finally got him in the car he started yelling at me. He took my lack of going after him or leaving the house with him as me choosing my parents over him. That I didn't actually believe in the same things because I wouldn't stand up for him. He then just kept demanding I pull over and let him out as it was clear where my loyalties actually lie. I was hysterically crying and just begging him to stop as I just wanted to go home. Save for my sniffles and sharp breathing, things were quiet for about an hour when my husband said he just cut off his family too. That surprised me, so I asked why. Turns out none of them voted. This got my husband upset all over again and he began badgering them, saying how he couldn't understand that as a nurse, his sister, why she would refuse to vote on things that would directly impact her and her work, and that it was a slap in the face for all they went through growing up, reliant on government-funded services. She texted back, "I don't have to justify a damn thing to you." And my husband proceeded to do the same thing with them as he did with my parents. We traveled in silence the rest of the way and I got us home just before 2 a.m. It's now the afternoon of the same day and I have no idea what to do. I feel a bit betrayed because I had no say in any of this, but I'm stuck dealing with the fallout. I feel broken and guilty because the life I had pictured for our daughter with loving extended family just got ripped away. I feel torn between my husband and our families. And I have no idea what to do. I have not talked to my husband today at all. To be honest, I don't even know what to say. What do I even do? I don't even know what I want, but I do know that I'm not feeling happy or excited about having our daughter anymore. Any advice would be appreciated. Life I had pictured for our daughter with loving extended family just got ripped away. It sounds like maybe you never had a loving extended family to begin with. Men who get into nasty screaming matches at family holidays without any regard for their heavily pregnant daughter don't strike me as particularly loving. They strike me as volatile jerks with enabling wives. Husband messed up, but why is the Republican boomer dad getting a pass? He's just as guilty. And don't say, that's just how dad is. He needs to be better to be allowed near you or your baby. Okay, you need to work on your response to conflict. You're a grown woman who is about to have a child. Freezing up and not saying anything and just standing deer in the headlights doesn't cut it anymore. Get some therapy and grow up. The rest, you've got a huge amount of problems and not sure how you'll handle those. What happened to your boundaries? What would your husband write? Perhaps. I visited my wife's family after the shower and her father bullied me with his political opinions. My wife sat there and did nothing and allowed it to happen, and when I told her I wanted to leave, she refused to join me. You need to take responsibility for the relationship between your nuclear family and your extended family. Your father's not gonna stop bullying your husband unless you step in and tell him that any future relationship is contingent on a permanent end to bullying. Your husband might be faulted for his sensitivity and for taking your father's bait. But he never should have been baited, and your freezing up is a sorry excuse for doing nothing and watching it happen. So you had a clear boundary set up, and your father blatantly passes that boundary. You let it happen. Husband overreacts, which could be because he always does and need therapy, or it could be because you didn't tell your family to fuck off. You should have said something and stop with the bullshit that you froze. You, your dad and your husband are all stuck in this situation. It kind of sounds like you forced your husband on a 4-hour trip directly into an argument that your aggressive and combative father had prepared ahead of time, and then you didn't have his back at all, even a little. Everything that happened after was an overreaction on his part. But my F33 fiancé, M34, revealed to me that he has a child with another woman. How do I process this? I have been with my fiancé for a year and 3 months. I am 6 months pregnant. I know, we moved very fast with our engagement and getting pregnant. I know it was not a very rational decision, somehow it seemed right at the time. We have had some fights, but in general things seemed good and we have been very excited about meeting our baby soon. Yesterday my fiancé sat me down and told me we needed to talk about something. He told me he was very sorry he did not tell me sooner, that he was afraid I might leave and he was ashamed. He also told me that he understands that I might leave after what he tells me. He told me he has a child with his ex. They were together years ago for 8 years, but met up several years later, had some casual sex and she got pregnant unexpectedly. They did not get together after that, but she wanted to keep the baby. He started dating someone else, that did not work out, and then he met me. The child is 1 year and 3 months old, so she was born right around the time we had started dating. We had been dating for about 2 weeks. Back then, he told me he had to go on a week-long business trip, but actually he was at the hospital and his daughter was born. He has told me that he goes to the gym almost every day, for around 3 hours, but in reality he has also used that time to see his daughter. The mother of his child does not know he is engaged with me and that I am pregnant. He tells me they just do not talk about these kinds of things. She has also blocked me on Facebook, even though I have never tried to contact her. He told me she does not want to know anything about me and that she would probably want to be with him, but he does not have feelings for her. I asked him how come she still has feelings for him, if he has been clear with her that he does not want a relationship and it has been 2 years since their casual sex. He told me, I don't know, I guess I am just that great, I am having a hard time processing all of this. My fiancé said he feels better now after getting it off his chest. He says he understands I need time to think about this situation, but he also says he does not want to wait forever for me to decide whether I want to continue this relationship or not. He wanted me to meet his daughter today, but I said it was too soon for me. Now he has bought some diapers and other stuff for when she comes over. He asked me if I would be ready tomorrow. We have not yet bought much for the nursery for our baby, but now he suddenly wants to hurry up and buy a bed for the nursery, so that his daughter could stay the night before our baby is born. I feel overwhelmed trying to process all the information and also sad that the nursery I have been planning for our baby will not just be for our baby. This is not how I imagined having my first child. What are your thoughts on this? Has anyone ever been in a similar situation? How to process all of this and how to move forward? All red flags. I'm that great. Bro, get over yourself. I think you need to find a way to reach out to his ex to confirm his story. It's all pretty convenient that you can't reach out to her and that he was already broken up when you guys met, but she was still pregnant. It's also convenient that he got the courage to tell you this after you couldn't get an abortion anymore. He sounds like he's baby trapping you. I'm not sure, so please reach out to the ex. There is def more to the story. Edit. Snarky edition. Christ, this is why you don't have a child with someone you barely know. He lied to you for entire relationship. Now he knows you're trapped in a pregnancy too late to abort. Convenient timing on his end. No advice, do better for your kid. So it was not just a lie of omission. He lied when the baby was born, and then every time he went to the gym, he waited till you were 6 months pregnant, then dropped this bombshell and is pushing for visitation without giving you the time and space to come to terms with all this. He claims he was afraid you might leave. What he actually did in withholding the information until now was not to give you the opportunity to make the decision yourself. He took that from you, and now the decision is to break up and be a single parent. He wants you to be a babysitter for his kid when he's 100% still sleeping with his ex. Tell him his kid can come to your house after you meet the mama in person. Watch how quickly he tries to squirm out of that. You need to find and talk to this woman. He's lying to both of you. Why would the ex be okay with her daughter spending nights with you guys if she doesn't want to know anything about you? Your fiancé is a terrible person. My advice is, don't marry someone who denies the existence of his children. Your relationship, such as it is built on sand. I, 24 female, placed an ultimatum on my 30 male partner. Is that bad? I, 24F, have been dating my boyfriend, 30M, for over 6 years. We've discussed engagement over the past few years, and we even bought a ring over a year ago. When I recently asked him about when he might propose, his response shocked me. He said he still needs to figure out if we're a good match after 6 years. As the daughter of traditional Mexican parents, they've told me that if we're not moving toward marriage, we should consider going our separate ways. Back in June, I told him I was ready to get engaged, especially since we both have our degrees, full-time jobs, and are financially stable. Despite that, he keeps telling me he's not ready. I finally told him that if he doesn't propose by the end of the year, I'm done. I feel like 6 years is more than enough time to know if I'm the right person for him. Is this ultimatum reasonable, or is there something deeper going on? The problem with ultimatums is they're generally given to the wrong person. Don't tell him you're done if not engaged by year end. Tell yourself that. You can't control his behavior, but you do control your own. You are right, 6 years is enough time to know. If he's not ready, he likely wouldn't be a good husband to you, especially if he's been pushed into taking that step. Sounds like he's the type that's going to marry the very next girl he dates, a year from now, or if you stay together 6 more years. You have waited long enough. As one woman to another, 24, and having to start over is fine, but every year that goes by will get harder. Giving someone an ultimatum under these circumstances doesn't work well even when you do get what you want. The fundamental problem is that he doesn't want to marry you, but doesn't have the courage to break up with you, or maybe he's just comfortable in the relationship. What new information can you learn after 6 years of dating that could sway his decision? You are only 24 years old. Find someone who is excited about marrying you. Over 6 years, and 24F, means you were 17 or 18 when you started dating, and he was 24. That's incredibly creepy and predatory. He never wanted a fiancé, he wanted a pet, and you've been that. Now you want to get treated like a partner, and he's stringing you along until he finds another random teenager to appease him. This is all kinds of fucked up, and I would recommend running now. I'm sorry, he just doesn't want to marry you as you're not the right person for him. If you had to give someone an ultimatum to marry you, then they don't really want to marry you. You should cut your losses and move on. Every day you spend with this guy is a day you aren't spending with the person who wants to marry you. I, 44F, want breakup from my husband, 48M, after a lifetime together. Seen things clearly? 44F, have been married to my husband, 48M, for 20 years, and we dated for 8 years before that. Although we've been together since ever, I've come to a breaking point. We've grown in different directions and suddenly have nothing in common. He's not my friend, partner, or safe haven the person you love should be. He never supports me, he's my worst critic and has done things that cannot overcome. Actually, every time we fight, I always go back to the unresolved bad memories holidays he ruined. This one time he left me at home sick alone with the kids to go out with his mates. He is impossible to communicate with. Every time we have a problem and want to talk about it, he becomes all defensive and half childishly mocks me. It's impossible to have a conversation with him. Usually it's a monologue without any reply from him, and then he tries sexual approaches without things being solved. I've told him many times that he can't have my body if he doesn't have my soul. But he doesn't understand it. I'll be honest, sex is amazing and he loves my body and is always up for sex. But that has become a problem because even if I'm very tired or sad, he only wants sex and gets mad if I don't. Last time we were arguing, he told me to shut up, and I told him he can't shut me up because we live in a free country, and he immediately called me something equivalent to son of a $. L immediately knew I could never be with him anymore. We've been living in the same house, barely speaking. He's pretending I didn't tell him this is over. I'm so done. I just want to be alone. At the same time, it's really scary after a lifetime together to think this is really over. Am I seeing things clearly? Sounds pretty clear to me. Go, leave him and start your new life. It isn't a lifetime together. It is part of a lifetime. You still have so much ahead of you and so much you could experience and enjoy. Don't think of it as time wasted because you did have some good times. You've now grown and have realized what type of person you don't want in your life, what things you enjoy, how you want your life going forward to be. Those are all investments in you. Kick him to the curb, find the wonderful you that is getting lost in this toxic situation and live your best life. Don't settle for crumbs. You deserve the whole cake. Gottman says the number one determination of a relationship's success is whether each party is able and willing to be influenced by the other. He has no input from you. No listening to you. It's pretty well already dead. You've just been using orgasms to cover up that fact. If good sex is all he's giving you in the partnership, then you don't have a partner, you have an escort. Except an escort would treat you better. You're allowed to leave your husband. You don't like each other, respect each other, or love each other. So why stay? It's not a healthy relationship and it's not worth saving. Leave, you will feel so much better. You seem clear to me. Say a lawyer, get your ducks in a row and get divorced.